A new dawn is coming. Kind of unsullied.
We've seen something strange.
It's her. She has come to do you some evil.
You may refuse me as your sister, but I may compel you as your queen. Now tell me what you know.
The Red Keep just had rats in the walls, bodies on a dinner table, and a queen who can't tell friend from traitor anymore. And what happens next might be the moment Rhaenyra Targaryen finally breaks. House of the Dragon just delivered one of the most unsettling episodes of the entire series, and honestly it wasn't because of dragons or battles. It was because of what's happening inside Rhaenyra's own head. Episode 5 didn't need a single dragon in the sky to feel dangerous, and that's exactly what made it so effective. From the very first scene you could feel the walls closing in on the Black Queen, and I don't just mean that as a metaphor. Rhaenyra is sitting on the Iron Throne now, the thing she's wanted her entire life, and instead of feeling secure, she feels like she's back on Dragonstone, questioned by everyone, trusted by no one. That line alone tells you everything about where her mental state is heading. The episode opens with a small council meeting that quickly turns into a preview of the chaos to come. Adam and Baela report that Vhagar has been spotted burning the countryside, completely unchecked, and Rhaenyra immediately orders Daemon to take Caraxes and deal with it. This should be simple. This should be obedience. Instead, Daemon refuses her in front of the entire council, because he's more interested in investigating the deaths of 2 gold cloaks found murdered in Flea Bottom the night before. Think about what that moment actually means. This is not a private disagreement between husband and wife. This is Daemon publicly undermining the Queen's authority in front of the very people she needs to believe in her rule. And Rhaenyra clearly feels it because she catches up to him afterward and asks him, almost desperately, if she somehow ended up back on Dragonstone, back in the position where nobody listens to her and everyone questions her right to command. This is where the real psychological unraveling begins, and I think it's the smartest thing the show has done all season. Rhaenyra tells Daemon there is treachery somewhere in the city, and that she intends to uncover it. But Daemon doesn't hear a queen protecting her kingdom. He hears a woman chasing revenge, and honestly he's not entirely wrong. What's fascinating though is how hypocritical his own position is. Just 2 episodes earlier, Daemon was the one telling Rhaenyra to stop obsessing over King's Landing, and instead focus on conquering the rest of Westeros. Now that his own gold cloaks are the ones being murdered, suddenly Flea Bottom is the most important place in the realm. That contradiction says a lot about both of them. Neither one of them is thinking clearly anymore. They're reacting, not ruling, and a kingdom that's only 5 episodes into a war cannot survive 2 leaders who are unraveling at the same time. And then there's the moment that really should worry every single person still rooting for Rhaenyra to hold this kingdom together. In the middle of everything else falling apart, she is told that her son, Prince Joffrey, has returned from the Vale. This should be a moment of relief, maybe even joy. Instead, Rhaenyra hesitates. She says she'll go see him, but you can feel the reluctance in it. A mother sitting on the most powerful seat in Westeros, unable to even fully engage with the return of her own child because she is so consumed by paranoia and suspicion. That single choice tells you she is starting to lose herself in the crown, and once a ruler starts losing themselves, everyone around them starts paying the price. But the moment that truly defines this episode, the one that's going to have consequences for the rest of the season, comes later, when the investigation into the Gold Cloak murders leads to something far worse than anyone expected. What Daemon uncovers isn't just 2 dead men in an alley. It's a message. A calculated, deliberate act meant to humiliate the crown and prove that Rhaenyra cannot even protect the men sworn to guard her own city. And the moment that message is delivered, everything Rhaenyra has been trying to hold together starts cracking even faster. She isn't just fighting a war against the Greens anymore. She's fighting a war against her own capital, against her own guards, against the growing sense that the people she rules don't actually see her as their queen. They see her as an occupier sitting on a throne that was never supposed to be hers. What makes this so devastating is the timing. Rhaenyra finally has the Iron Throne. She finally has King's Landing. And instead of stability, she has chaos closer to her than ever before. Chaos that isn't coming from a battlefield miles away, but from inside the walls she sleeps behind every night. Honestly, this might be the most dangerous position she's been in all season, because a threat you can see coming across a battlefield is something you can prepare for. A threat hiding inside your own city wearing the face of your own people is something else entirely. And that's exactly the kind of pressure that breaks a ruler. Now let's talk about what's happening underneath the Red Keep. Because this is where the episode truly turns into something out of a nightmare. Rhaenyra had taken Alan's suggestion from the previous episode to bring cats into the castle to deal with a growing rat problem. And on the surface that felt like a small, almost comedic detail. But it ends up connecting to something much darker. The faction that has been scrawling anti-Rhaenyra slogans across the walls of King's Landing has actually breached the Red Keep itself. Not the city, not the outer walls. The Red Keep, the supposed safest place in the entire kingdom. And by the end of the hour, that breach ends in a massacre in the basement. Think about what that means for Rhaenyra's sense of security. She isn't just losing control of the streets outside her window. She's losing control of the walls she sleeps behind. At the same time, we get one of the most quietly devastating threads of the episode, and it involves Helaena. It's revealed, almost in passing, that Helaena is pregnant, and the way this information comes out, through Alicent trying to help her with her clothing and Helaena pulling away, tells you everything about the state of that relationship. Helaena isn't just grieving. She's isolating herself even from her own mother, at the exact moment she needs support the most. And when you sit with the timeline of what happened to Aegon last season, this pregnancy raises uncomfortable questions that the show clearly wants us to notice, but hasn't fully answered yet. Whatever the explanation ends up being, one thing is certain: Helaena is being pulled deeper into a storyline that's about to get far more tragic. And a pregnant, grieving, isolated princess inside a palace that's already falling apart is not a combination that ends well. Meanwhile, Alicent is doing everything she can to stay out of Rhaenyra's orbit entirely. She spends much of the episode trying to avoid the new queen, even attempting to escape the situation altogether, and at one point she tries to convince Mysaria to play both sides of this war. Honestly, I think this is one of the smartest character choices the show has made all season. Alicent and Rhaenyra's relationship has been the emotional backbone of this entire story since episode 1. But it has also run its course in a way. Watching Alicent actively try to remove herself from Rhaenyra's reach, rather than confront her one more time, tells you she knows exactly how dangerous Rhaenyra has become. She isn't trying to reason with her old friend anymore. She's trying to survive her. And then there's the moment that changes the entire trajectory of the season. Ormund Hightower, who has spent the last several episodes quietly building his own power base in the Reach, finally reveals just how far he's willing to go. In a calculated act of psychological warfare, several gold cloaks, including the loyal and brutal Ser Luther Largent, are slaughtered and staged around a dinner table inside the city, with the words "A feast for traitors" smeared across the wall behind them. This isn't random violence. This is a message sent directly to Rhaenyra, and it lands exactly the way Ormund wants it to. Rather than take credit for it himself, Ormund does something even more devious. He shifts the blame onto Prince Daemon, positioning the boy as either a scapegoat or, depending on how you read it, a weapon he intends to use for something even bigger. And that something bigger becomes clear almost immediately. Ormund begins openly promoting Daemon as a rival king, going so far as to mint coins bearing the young prince's face. Think about the audacity of that move. He isn't just challenging Rhaenyra's claim to the throne anymore. He's manufacturing an entirely new king out of thin air, using a teenager as the face of a rebellion he fully controls behind the scenes. While all of this chaos is unfolding in King's Landing, the show quietly shifts our attention to Harrenhal, where Aemond is finally recovering from the injuries that nearly killed him. And this is where things get genuinely unsettling in a different way. Alice Rivers is by his side through the recovery, and there's something in the way she comforts him, almost like a mother would, that should make longtime fans of this world extremely nervous. Aemond, who lost his own mother's protection the moment he chose ambition over family, is now forming an emotional bond with a woman whose intentions have never been fully clear. If you know anything about how Alice Rivers operates, this isn't comfort. This is influence. And a healing, increasingly loyal Aemond, guided by someone like Alice, is a combination that could reshape the entire back half of this season in ways nobody is fully prepared for. So by the time the episode ends, look at where every major player actually stands. Rhaenyra is losing her grip on the one place she thought was safe. Alicent is actively distancing herself from a friendship that's become a liability. Helaena is carrying a secret that could destroy what's left of the Green family's stability. Ormond has just declared open war on Rhaenyra's legitimacy by installing a rival king. And Aemond, the most volatile weapon on the entire board, is quietly healing under the influence of someone who answers to no one. None of these threats feel like coincidence. They feel like a countdown, and every one of them is pointing toward the exact same outcome. A queen who is running out of time to prove she deserves the throne she's sitting on. So where does all of this actually lead us next? And why does the title of this breakdown, Rhaenyra Goes Mad, feel less like an exaggeration and more like a warning? Everything that's been building since episode 4 is now converging into something that feels genuinely inevitable. Rhaenyra is not simply a queen facing political pressure anymore. She is a mother, a widow of war, and a ruler who has just discovered that the enemy isn't only outside her walls, it's inside them, wearing familiar faces and waiting for the right moment to strike. And based on everything we now know is coming, the next chapter is going to push her further than anything we've seen so far. Daemon is not the kind of man who lets an attack on his own guards go unanswered, and everything points to him taking matters into his own hands in the most demon way possible. Reports point to him disguising himself as a common gold cloak, walking directly into the streets he's supposed to be protecting, hunting for whoever is responsible for slaughtering his men. And knowing his history, knowing what he's capable of when he feels disrespected, this isn't going to end in an arrest. This is going to end in blood, and it's going to happen fast. What makes this so tense is that Daemon acting alone, without Rhaenyra's knowledge or approval, only deepens the exact fracture we've already seen forming between them. Every time he takes justice into his own hands instead of trusting his wife's rule, he chips away a little more at whatever authority she has left. A king consort who solves problems his queen didn't sanction is not loyalty. It's a slow, quiet rebellion of its own. At the same time, Ormund Hightower's campaign to install Daemon as a rival king is not going to slow down. It's going to accelerate. He's already minting coins with the boy's face on them, which means this isn't a rumor or a scattered rebellion anymore. This is an organized, funded, deliberate attempt to split the realm in two. And that puts Rhaenyra in an impossible position. Every hour she spends chasing killers inside her own palace is an hour she isn't spending stopping a second king from being crowned in her own kingdom. She's being forced to fight a war on two fronts at once, one inside the walls and one outside them, and there's only so long a person can hold that kind of pressure before something breaks.